The wind howled across the barren ranchlands as Mary Calloway trudged through the snow, a worn wool coat wrapped tight around her large frame, every step sinking into the drifting white. She had come to Willow Creek Ranch because she had nowhere else to go. No family, no home, no references except the quiet determination that had always kept her alive. Most ranchers refused her before she even spoke. Men glanced at her rounded cheeks, wide hips, and heavy arms and dismissed her with the same rehearsed cruelty. "We're not hiring." But the widower who owned Willow Creek, Mr. Cole Hartman, wasn't just a rancher. He was a man shattered by grief. His wife had died 6 months earlier, leaving him alone with an infant daughter who screamed in hunger every night because no one could nurse her. He needed help desperately, but every woman he hired either quit within days or refused the burden altogether. When Mary reached the porch, she hesitated, brushing snow from her braids before knocking. The door creaked open, revealing the rough, tired face of Cole, dark circles under his eyes, his hat still on, as if he hadn't rested in days. He looked her up and down, and she braced herself for the usual rejection. Instead, he asked, "You're the cook?" She nodded. He stepped aside with a reluctant gesture. The kitchen was cold, the hearth dead, the baby crying from the next room with a piercing wail that echoed through the rafters. Mary swallowed hard. She knew that sound, an infant running out of strength. Without waiting for permission, she set down her bag, reached the crib, and gently lifted the tiny girl in her arms. Cole stiffened. "She won't eat," he muttered. "I've tried everything." Mary rocked the baby against her chest, humming softly, the way her own mother had once soothed her. After a moment, she whispered, almost scared to say it aloud, "Sir, I know no one wants a fat girl in their home, let alone in their kitchen." Her voice trembled, but she steadied herself. "But I can nurse the baby." Cole's breath caught. He hadn't expected anything from this woman except maybe a pot of stew and some biscuits. His gaze softened, but wariness lingered. "You do that? For a stranger's child?" Mary nodded, her eyes on the child whose cries were losing strength. "A baby shouldn't suffer because the world thinks I'm too big to matter." Without another word, she moved to the rocking chair by the fire, adjusted her blouse modestly, and began to nurse the starving child. The baby latched instantly, greedily, as if she had been waiting her whole short life for someone like Mary. Tears slipped down Mary's cheeks, tears of relief, compassion, and something else she couldn't yet name. Cole stood frozen, watching as his daughter finally quieted, her small body relaxing for the first time in weeks. He had seen strength before, on battlefields, in storms, in men, but never had he seen something as gentle and powerful as the sight before him. When the fire crackled back to life, warming the cabin, Mary looked exhausted but peaceful, the baby asleep against her chest. Cole stepped forward slowly, almost reverently. "Mary," he said quietly, his voice thickening, "stay. I don't care what anyone says about you. My daughter needs you. I need you on this ranch." Mary blinked, startled, not because he was offering her a job, but because he'd said her name with a softness she hadn't heard in years. "I'll work hard," she whispered. "I just ask for a place by the fire and enough food to keep my strength." Cole shook his head. "You'll get that and more." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the lodge key, and placed it gently into her hand. "From today, Willow Creek is your home too." But Mary didn't yet know the truth. Cole wasn't just offering her a job. He was offering her a chance to belong, to heal, and to reveal the strength he saw beneath her softness. And though Mary didn't know it yet, someone else in town would soon hear about the fat cook living with the widower, and trouble was coming, trouble that would test her courage, her heart, and her right to be loved. The morning sun spilled across Willow Creek Ranch like golden honey, as Mary woke to the sound of gentle coos from the cradle beside her bed. In the room, Cole had cleaned himself so she would feel comfortable. Every day since her arrival, Mary had transformed the ranch. Meals simmered on the stove. The baby, Lila, grew stronger and healthier. And even the ranch hands worked smoother with hot bread in their bellies and someone who listened to their worries. But not everyone approved. When word spread that the widower had hired a plump cook nursing a child, some townsfolk whispered that it was improper, scandalous, even indecent. Mary ignored them, focusing instead on feeding the baby, cleaning the home, and bringing warmth back into a house that had been consumed by grief. Cole watched her often, quietly, respectfully, studying the strength in her arms as she kneaded dough, the way she carried Lila with tenderness, how she humbly stepped aside whenever someone insulted her. One cold afternoon, trouble arrived. Rachel Ward, the town's prettiest widow and the woman everyone assumed Cole would eventually marry, stomped onto the porch wearing her fur-lined shawl. She barged into the cabin without knocking, her eyes narrowing at the sight of Mary nursing Lila by the hearth. "This is unacceptable," Rachel snapped. "Cole, you cannot keep her here." Mary froze, clutching the baby closer. Cole stepped forward, jaw tightening. "Rachel, lower your voice." "You're ruining your reputation," Rachel hissed, letting some oversized cook act like she's... But before she could finish, Cole's voice cut through the cabin like a thunderclap. "She saved my daughter's life." Rachel blinked, stunned. Cole continued, his voice low and fierce. "You think I care what people say? Mary came here when no one else would. She feeds my child, she keeps this town." His voice rang out, slicing through the dusty air, awakening guilt in those who had stayed silent. Ilara leaned her head against him, exhausted but conscious enough to hear the shift happening around them. Her heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the knowledge that Colt had risked everything for her. Clayton, burning with wounded pride, took one reckless step forward. "Put her down, Reddington." Colt didn't blink. "Last warning." Clayton raised his gun, shaking, but intent on proving something. And then it happened faster than lightning, cracking across a storm sky. Colt shifted Ilara behind him, drew his revolver with blinding speed, and fired at the ground inches from Clayton's boot. The bullet shot up dust like a miniature explosion. Clayton stumbled backward, dropping his weapon with a yelp. The crowd erupted in panic, scattering. Deputies froze, afraid to escalate further. Colt stepped over the fallen gun, kicked it across the ground and growled, "Next bullet doesn't hit the dirt." Clayton believed him. Everyone did. No one moved as Colt lifted Ilara gently onto his horse, mounting behind her to keep her steady. She clutched his arm weakly, whispering, "Why did you come?" Colt leaned close, his voice rough with emotion he didn't bother hiding. "Because the world may forget kindness, Ilara, but I don't." He nudged the horse, and the crowd parted like a tide, clearing a path as they rode through. No one dared to stop them. No one dared to speak. Only when they reached the ridge overlooking the valley did Ilara find the strength to look up at him. "You saved me," she whispered. Colt shook his head gently. "You saved me first." The wind carried them onward. Two souls tethered not by fate, but by the quiet power of compassion repaid. And as the sun dipped behind the distant canyon, it was clear to anyone watching. That day would be remembered, not as a day of cruelty, but as the day a cowboy rewrote justice with courage, loyalty, and a single unbreakable vow: touch her again and die.